Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and I guess it's time to go down that rabbit hole with the recently released Finders documents from the FBI vault. Now, I was unsure how much of this was actually going to be new because if you've been watching this channel, then you know that number one, I did an extensive interview with Derek Bros on his documentary film that everybody can see, and I totally encourage people to see. Who will find what the finders hide? And we're going to get into his documentary, and he did a great breakdown of the entire document. We're not going to do the entire document. Hopefully we're going to have him on. But what he thought the biggest bombshells were, it's over an hour long, but if you're interested in this kind of stuff, again, Derek's been doing it for a very long time, and I suggest everybody go check it out. Now, there's also a pretty good article out there that we're going to reference from the Tallahassee Democrat. We're going to get into everything Finders, including, of course, the document that is now available to everybody that wants to go take a look. Okay, so we're going to probably go over the first 100 pages. It's going to be an extensive one. But let's talk for a second what the finders have been presented as, what the finders allegedly were, and how long I've been covering this. Now, this is not new to me. I interviewed Ted Gunderson, which a lot of this information, at least in the public eye, came out through. And Ted has some problems. You know, Ted admittedly worked COINTELPRO for the FBI. Okay? So right there, you know he's part of an FBI disinformation campaign that involved demonizing political leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., right? And the Black Panthers. So that's a real thing. We have to take that with a grain of salt. Two, when you look at what the finders lead to and the Central Intelligence Agency connections, it may not be with everybody. And the abuse of the children is just a portion of what this group was all about. But we're going to get into all that. So let's start off with how much is redacted and how much we didn't see. Now, of course, the large allegations here, right, are the part about not only the child abuse and the sexual abuse, which we'll obviously get into and has been in the public arena before. There's not a lot new there. There may be some new stuff regarding brainwashing techniques and child rearing, but we'll get into that. But with that being said, you know, the satanic ritual abuse and the child abuse part, where you look at the medical examination and the psychological report, that's redacted. And we're going to talk about that because it's already in the public arena. If, again, you go and check out Who Will Find What the Finders Hide, the Derek Bros documentary that I recommend you definitely check out. Things that are redacted in this are already available through other documentation. Now, they say out of the gates 176 pages have been completely deleted. A lot of those pages are duplicates, but not all of them. And what's really interesting is that the evidence that's been collected by the local police department, okay, the DC Police Department, in the two establishments that they raid, is acknowledged to have existed, but then somehow disappears and is gone from the public view. You have to ask yourself, number one, were they actually destroyed? Because they say that all the property was either given back or destroyed. That's also in this documentation. But, I mean, is there a record somewhere? So let's just start getting right into it. And guys, this may be a little dry for a while because we're going to go through every single page. All right, so like I said, right in the very top, you know, this is a 300-plus page document. We're going to hit about 100 of them, but not really, because a lot of this is bureaucratic nonsense. But at the same time, we're going to go through how the FBI treats this investigation, because the FBI refutes pretty much everything that's said about the child abuse, and they're supposed to be an alternative living style. But then it's acknowledged that the Central Intelligence Agency, as soon as they know about the investigation, open their own investigation into this. So let's scroll down. This is these are the pages, again, that are missing, and you notice a lot of them are duplicates, but then you have a lot that are not duplicates, okay? So there should be 424 pages here, and you judge for yourself. I'd say out of the 100 and 76? About 50 to 75 of them are duplicates. So you got to wonder what the rest are. And remember, a lot of this is bureaucratic stuff. So when we look at the date on this, this is the 1993, when they're going to look at it again. Remember, this happens in 87. So it kind of starts out in 93, goes back to 87, and in 93, it's Ted Gunderson who is kind of directing this, even though his name is cut out a lot, to, I believe it's Charlie Rose, who's a congressman at the time, and another person within government. Okay? So, as you can see, Finders Group, White Slave Traffic Act, Sexual Exploitation of Children, Obstruction of Justice, Preliminary Inquiry. So this is going to be, I believe this is the FBI preliminary inquiry into this. Okay? So the DOJ is asking for this, and they want the allegations of, again, what we just talked about. The group known as the Finder, and what role, if any, was played by the United States intelligence community. That's a broad brush, right? Because as you know, the Central Intelligence Agency may have a knock or somebody who's just an asset. And then, for instance, the game caller, who we're going to get into, is the head of this cult. And although they cross out his real name, it's Marion Petty. Even though he's not the founder of the organization, he does end up becoming the leader of this organization. And the Finders were this odd group, again, of people who were on drugs, okay, were obviously easily influenced. They're later described in parts of this document as overachievers without any self-direction, okay? So, you know, a lot of the stuff that they were doing had nothing to do with the SRA or the child abuse. I want to get that out of the way. But to deny that evidence existed, well, I have no idea how you could do that, okay? By separate communication, WMFO will be provided available documentation received to date from the DOJ concerning, I would say that's probably Gunderson, but it might not be Gunderson's allegations. United States Customs Service, headquarters of Washington, also possess documentation concerning the Finders, which is to be obtained. Now remember, we're missing about 176 of these pages. Let's get that out of the way. All right, so again, they're going to give you the background. And in 1987, this is blacked out, were convicted of sexually abusing children. One of the children who attended the school during the time of the alleged abuse was, and doing business as, and they blank this out, after the imposition of prison sentences on both. I would imagine this is about the McMartin trial. Again, it's blacked out, but later on, for some reason, you have this document that really Gunderson's put out for years. And they have another Gunderson document where names are taken out in this. He must have presented them. They talk about a 3-ring binder in this, okay? And I'm assuming that's Gunderson bringing the 3-ring binder to them of evidence. Because I remember when I met him, he had a lot of documents too. But remember, I believe the McMartin trial later gets flipped, like as of the last 5 years. I might be wrong on that, but you know, let's look that up. McMartin trial released. I'm pretty sure it's true. It's true, but released. We do it live here. McMartin preschool trial indictment. Let's see. Where are the key players now? Yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of them were let go here. I don't want to go on there, but it looks like yeah, they were ended up being released. But if you look at this document and any of it's true, it's frightening, and there's no doubt that, again, the Central Intelligence Agency is somewhere involved in this. So, you know, they look at this and they say, look, numerous children had been abused and was part of a large organized scheme. Subsequently, has attempted to interest in congressional members, and he uses his efforts to enhance efforts in the area of child sexual abuse and investigating claims of organized abuse. During October 1993, and I'm assuming this is Gunderson, met with the United States Congressman Rose, I discussed too, allegations concerning the group known as the Finders. Both Congressman Rose and Gunderson subsequently provided information concerning these allegations to the Department of Justice. Okay? So when they look at this file, this Tallahassee file, you're going to see some handwritten notes in a bit. And remember, we're not even going to read this because we might as well just get to where we get to the actual police report, and you see that these kids had supposedly insect bites. They were dirty. They were with two men that were not their fathers. Okay, that was very bizarre. I believe two of the fathers eventually get interviewed, but it's like four women's kids. And it's definitely not all of the fathers. And then family members say that, the kids were being abused. But again, we'll get there. So the two subjects with the children could not initially provide sufficient information as to their legal custody of the children because they didn't have any, and were uncooperative regarding their identity and children's identity. As a result of the information developed during these arrests, they contracted the Metropolitan Police Department. Now, the D.C. Metro PD are the ones that really did the work, and then when they presented that work, we're going to get to it, instead of the things that were initially supposedly obtained and the pictures that were taken, those were not given supposedly to the people that were doing this FBI investigation, and immediately everything was classified as secret. And you'll actually see later on when we get to the documents that have been released that they did have a secret classification, and they get crossed out. So they start looking at the finders. Let's continue on. Let's see the results of their investigation. Yeah, so this is what I don't understand. You're going to find out eventually who this person is, but again, they black names like that out. Let's see. So the DOJ review of the USCS documents indicates that during the execution of the search warrants by the MPD and the two finders' properties, the special agents claims, and this is the one, there were several special agents, one of which is no longer with us. He died shortly after this. Derek Brose, hopefully he's going to be doing a broadcast with us, and he's going to, try to fill in some of the blanks. But the one that did, Brose hunted down. He didn't want anything to do with him. He did not want to talk to him. But he says he observed a substantial amount of computer equipment and documents purportedly containing instructions for obtaining children for unspecified purposes. Now remember, the van that they pull over also has this weird computer and surveillance equipment in it. All right? So, again, keep reading. The instructions allegedly include the impregnation of female members of the community, purchasing children, trading children, and kidnapping them, claims. And now, this is a large part that's blacked out. Why is it blacked out that many years later? Why can't we hear the claims of the officer that did the initial investigation? Now, again, to me, this looks like a subset, and later on he'll talk about it. What really looks like is going on is there's this minor disinformation and psychological operation campaign that's being monitored by the CIA and controlled through one of their assets, Marion Pettit. And then the rest of the group has no idea. They think they're anti-CIA. All right? They're all drugged up, in my opinion. And, then there's the subgroup that is in on the trafficking of the kids. That's what this looks like to me. And by the way, there is information out there from within the group themselves. It's, if you watch Derek Brose's documentary, the game caller, Marion Petty, that we're going to talk about. And by the way, Petty's wife was employed by the CIA, I think from 50 to 71, something like that, for 20 years. Petty himself, it has CIA connections all over him. But if you want to see like the kind of odd things they were doing, you can find the game caller somewhere online. You might not even have to purchase it. But it's from inside the mind of this group and what they claim to be. And by the way, just to get this out of the way, this man's Robert Terrell. And you can see that with the two guys, by the way, that were arrested. They were Michael Howell and Doug Ammerman. Okay, so the names are out there of a lot of these people. I want to put that out there. But Terrell himself, and by the way, has the same last name as probably the person who wrote this. Okay, because I think this is Tove Terrell, and he has a bunch of aliases, and we'll get into their disinformation and their dirty tricks later on. But he gave an interview to Derek Brose. Again, you need to watch Who Will Find What the Finders Hide. That predates all this documentation coming out. So, again, this is for a lot of the newbies as well as you seasoned veterans out there. A lot of Blackout right there, is in right after we talk about the kidnapping of children. Okay? He also is alleged the finders are involved in a well-organized child abuse scheme, and that I would think this is petty, but I don't know. Or it could be the CIA, obviously. Yeah, it's probably the Central Intelligence Agency. In conjunction with the State Department and the FBI's Foreign Counterintelligence Section, conspired to cover up those abuses. Which, to me, it really looks like. Well, when you start getting into this, and we start getting into the handwritten notes, it says there's no evidence of anything this guy said at all, which is bizarre. But they acknowledge that the evidence was collected. They don't say who's going to be contacted. But another really interesting thing as we scroll down through this, and we're only 10 pages deep, is that they show that the protocol changed in the 80s as to what they were going to do about sexual abuse. And actually they were staffed at about a quarter of their capacity. And because of that, they had less than half the convictions on abuse at the time. Showed how people were getting through the system. All right, so let's continue on through this, and they keep getting into what's going to happen here. The investigation should be conducted promptly in this matter, and will submit results by teletype to the Violent Crimes Fugitives Unit, Violent Crimes and Major Offenders Section, Criminal Investigation Division. Okay, so they're gonna get to the bottom of it. Okay, they have to locate the people and interview them. So we'll review available documentation, okay? But we're going to get to that documentation in a bit. So as you can look here, they look at the preliminary inquiry into the allegations made by the special agent. Actually, that may be Gunderson. Again, it's tough to tell. Again, intelligence community, a lot of this is repeated. Facts are being developed. Let's continue on. So here's some of the handwritten notes, right? This is where we're going to get into that, right? I'm pretty sure. It's been a while. A lot of the paperwork. By the way, guys, thumbs this video up, share it with others. This is why I know a lot of you have been missing the deep dives, and this documentation certainly deserves a deep dive. And I want to make sure. Here we go. Handwritten notes. Okay? So this had a confidential classification at the time for the FBI. And some of it's kind of, if you look at this, whether the CIA had any involvement, okay? So if you look at this, Special Activities Division, but at the end of the day, when you look at this, they say definitely not, okay? Let's get down to it. Where is it? Finders, definitely not a CIA front. So when you look at this, you see that there wasn't much done. It's pretty short, right? Those are their handwritten notes, and they come to the conclusion, no, it wasn't them. But let's get up to the type documentation. And like I said, guys, I mean, this really isn't that dense, and there's not a ton more out there. All right. So this is the memorandum for customs. So now they're talking about. And one of the things that does come in is when they start investigating the finders, and it continues. Like I said, there is that investigation, even though they say they shut it down in 87. They start looking at their properties, and you see ones in Florida, you see ones in Georgia and other places. And it also shows the businesses and offices that the finders had, right? And them trying to dissolve them years later. So if you look at this, still a lot of classification, and it has to do with the execution of the search warrants by the MPD in the two separate places. The place referred to as the farm, and then their building, which was like a warehouse. So, why do we even have all this blacked out? So, again, it just goes right back into that. And, the locations did not produce any of the items described in the examples cited by, and advised no evidence of child sexual exploitation, kidnapping, or related crimes as being obtained, and that there was no computerized listing ordering of children. A copy of the memorandum was provided to, all blacked out. Let me reiterate this. If you look at this, again, you look at this, handling caption matter of MPD advised the writer that the thorough review of all evidence obtained by the two aforementioned. So they're claiming that all the evidence that they said they had, they really don't have. And then it shows all the parties that they get. All right? Which, again, would be very, very bizarre that he said that all these things existed and he took that evidence in that was clearly reported on. So, if you look, let's see, focusing primarily on the Finders Group, stated that he or another FBI headquarters representative would arrange for a review of the files, documents in possession of the State Department and Intelligence Division and advise WMFO accordingly. All right. Preliminary request. The three will determine the best manner to request record checks by the DOS, the Department of State. So again, they're asking for more documentation. We'll conduct a search Division 5 records to determine if there is any documentation concerning the finders. So once again, all of a sudden, everything that the Metro PD in D.C. collected is gone. All right? It's gone. So it tells you right here that they prepared a packet of documents received to date with this matter for review by the WMFO. And I want to say this again. We know we're missing 176 pages. 50, 75 of them look like duplicates. So like 100 pages. But so far, they're just saying we don't have the pictures and the things that were actually taken into evidence. So let's see. It is noted that the DOJ requested that an FBI agent review relevant documents firsthand from the relevant intelligence agencies as opposed to having to rely on the agency's summary or review. So it looks like they're taking it pretty seriously. Okay, they're not trusting each other. During the meeting with the Section Chief Burgrasser and DOJ attorney in 93, it was pointed out that a written request for the FBI or DOJ would be required before any records could be obtained from DOS for review by the FBI. During the meeting, Mr. Burgesser requested that the FBI prepare a communication to and let him review it before it was sent to those agencies. Everything has to be reviewed. That's the other thing. All right? So this is that 3-ring binder I talked about. This binder contains USCS briefing material on the finders. They requested that the FBI contact USCS to obtain a copy of the material contained in this 3-ring binder. Vanessa Stuhler, thank you so much for that super chat. Google rewards to help you. Sorry it's not more. Well, I appreciate any super chats, guys. Let's see. So, again, when we talk about this is the Florida. Obviously, everything went down in Florida, but we have multiple states later on that are brought up in this document. So there's Congressman Rose discussing the allegations of the finders. The TV documentary, 48 Hours, planned to air a segment on it. They never did that. More blacked out content. All right. Let's see. Let's continue. So now we're getting back into the investigation of the arrest of the individuals in Tallahassee, Florida. Okay. And remember, the D.C. Police, when they go into these search warrants, they're the ones that find the satanic stuff. And it's the Florida people that find the abused children. But then they find the other weird documents that, the PD alleged to exist. So they find and interview the mothers of the 6 children. Again, I want to point out, once again, we can find those names. They are available right here. There's one of them right there, Paula Arcio. Those were her kids afterwards. Let's see. Let's go back, I believe. There they are right there. So Kristen Knuth, Judy Evans, Paula Arcio, and Carolyn. Carolyn said? That's a weird name, but then kind of a weird thing, huh? So again, guys, I hope more people are digging in this than just myself, Derek Bros. I hope people are really going to sink their teeth into this now because I think there is still some meat to this bone. Not only in the idea that the CIA seems to be running a weird disinformation campaign thing, and we'll get into that, but that the sex trafficking stuff of the kids is real. And they even talk about like a Nazi ideal set to try to create the perfect human being that can't be affected. And remember, what was MK Ultra about? MK Ultra, with all these little subsidiary groups, it was about creating the perfect mind-controlled slave and soldier. And again, when you get into those intelligence agencies, there's a huge amount of compartmentalization. All right, let's continue on. So they interview the moms of these children, but then only two of the fathers. All right? And remember, this is the preliminary inquiry in 93 by the FBI. So when you look at this, they say there were no references to blank. These files have been obtained and will be reviewed by the Violent Crimes Unit. They again keep looking at the two men and the small children. Let's see. Let's continue on. Locally. Let's see. So they always say that the sexual abuse was never proven, right? It appears there was parental consent for the individuals to travel. And they keep saying that, but when we get into, again, the medical reports, no one can explain them. And they're blacked out here in the psychological reports. And the fact that these kids, I believe you're going to find out, were urinating and defecating on the floor when they were being interviewed. Okay? I believe one of the children also in the medical reports had a prolapsed anus. All right? Let's see. So, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children was interviewed concerning the finders and the two searches conducted in 1987 of the two finders' properties in Washington, D.C. And then we had that blanked out again. The TPD, that's the Tallahassee Police Department, determined that these two men belonged to the group as the finders. Oh, we're getting tweeted at here. Let's see. Also advised, again, so much blacked out in this. Advised that the end had not developed any positive information that the Finders organization is involved in child sexual abuse. Well, then why do we have to blank out, the next three paragraphs? I don't understand that. And this is John Stitcher, and remember, he's deceased before. This is one of the people that said he saw this stuff. Okay? So Stitcher was a sergeant, and, he just ends up dead afterwards. Allegedly, and then blanked out. Let's see. Here we go. Exploitation of City Section, Department of Justice advised the DOJ has a book of material on the finders and additional material that will be available for review by the FBI. So again, they have all this documentation on them. The CIA admittedly opens an investigation as soon as it breaks, but they have no connections to intelligence. Petty himself looks like he has connections to intelligence. His wife has connections to intelligence. And just it seems like the evidence that's supposed to be there just doesn't even exist. It's so odd. Let's see who we got here. Anything important? Oh, I've got to call in. I totally forgot. Guys, I got to cut this short. I am ready to do this. I totally forgot that I have to call and do Ledge. So listen, we're going to come back with part 2. Even more. I love you guys. I'll see you on the flip.